There's this clip here that I want you to listen to.
To have your kids in front of an iPad doing two very bad things. One, you're killing brain cells on that kid.
Imagine you're driving in the car and the child is on the iPad. They don't have the opportunity to observe the world. Are your kids always on an iPad and it is concerning for you? Or let's say your loved one or someone you know, little kids, always on an iPad and it is difficult for them to concentrate or really do anything, or they give you a tantrum until you provide them with an iPad. There's this clip here that I want you to listen to, and then I'm going to have a conversation about it.
To have your kids in front of an iPad at a restaurant or an iPhone in the back seat of a car while you're driving, just to be able to keep them calm, keep them entertained, keep them from basically being loud and obnoxious kids, you're really doing two very bad things. One, you're killing brain cells on that kid. Number two, like all that blue light flashing in their face and the lack of interaction. Remember,
Yes, so I'm not even coming here to say that I know it all or I understand it all or I've even gotten it in, I would say, 100% under control in my own home. Like for me, I have two children. I have a 7 years old and also a 5 year old. Yeah, she'll be five soon. And at the beginning, it was difficult to actually get my children in control. I realized that I had to make the iPad available all the time to make them happy, to get them in control. When I'm in public places, I had to bring out the iPad to get them coordinated. And this was, I would say, about 2 or 3 years ago during the pandemic. That was all I could do to get my kids to be coordinated, to get them to really do what I want them to do in public. I had to bring out their iPad. But I observed that a trend with my children. I realized that when I have to take the iPad away from them, they behaved irrational. What I meant by irrational was the fact that they would overreact, they would start crying, they would give me tantrum. The behavior was weird. And let's say, for example, they are without the iPad for, let's say, 2 or 3 days. I don't really see that behavior. Yes, I get the, children tantrum for my four, she was 2 at that time. I get the little tantrum that a 2 year old will usually give to me, and then I get the tantrum of a 5 years old. But then it wasn't like this irrational tantrum, lack of control, out of control kind of tantrum. It was this weird tantrum that I felt was unusual. And then I had to come to this news that I told my husband that we have to take the iPad away. And we took the iPad away for over a year. They did not have access to the iPad. Yes, from time to time, they will have access to my phone. Most especially, my husband's phone was a no-go area. But they will have access to my own phone and play with it from time to time, but they had no access to the iPad. There was a great improvement. There was no access to the iPad. And then when it comes to the TV, what we did was there was no screen time during the week. So during the week, there was no screen time, and then the weekend, they had the screen time. I tell you that I observed great change in my children. My children became very creative. They started to draw a lot, they started to color a lot, they started to play together so much. They became so creative in activities they would do, in creative activities, in fun activities. They were no longer, I would say, irrational in the way they acted or respond to issues. The changes I observed in my children when I took away their iPad was extraordinary. We actually finally brought back the iPad, but guess what I did? I only give them the iPad once every week on a Saturday, and I give them the iPad for 2 hours on a Saturday, and that's all I do. I'm not saying that my own situation is like yours or my resolution will work for you, but I just had to bring up this topic today because I believe it's concerning. Our children are growing, their brain cells are growing. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical practitioner, I don't know anything medically, so I'm not speaking from the medical perspective. I'm just trying to speak on what he said about the fact that The children are growing, their brain cells are growing. We need to expose them to nature. We need to expose them to the world. I was just thinking about it. Imagine you're driving in the car and the child is on the iPad. They don't have the opportunity to observe the world. Like my children, for example, I know when I'm driving, they are looking out the window. My daughter will ask, "Mommy, that tree. Oh, mommy, that house. Oh, look at how this looks like. What color is that? Oh, what is that, mommy?" She asks me all those questions because she's observing the world as I'm driving, right? She's not just stuck to a pad where all she can see is just the screen and she doesn't really have an exposure to her world. So this is something that is so powerful. The iPad is good. Like, I don't think the iPad is like completely bad. The iPad is good. There's so much application on the iPad that a child can learn from. Another thing I observe actually is a laptop, right? Like the Google, you can have the Chrome book. I noticed because it has these buttons, it tends to engage the children. Okay, for example, like for my older daughter, she has different applications on a laptop, right, where she used to access courses in school. And I noticed that when she's on the laptop, she's engaged. Like she go into those softwares, applications, and then she's learning. I feel like she's not really so engrossed on the laptop like when I give her an iPad. I feel like the iPad gives her this this is my perspective and my observation. I feel like the iPad gives her this I would call it like friendship with the pad, where she just holds it and stares on it, or just swipe, and she's engrossed. I'm trying to look for the right words to explain this. But when it comes to the laptop, where she has to go through different applications to do schoolwork, I feel like she's more engaged. She's typing, she's trying to do some things, and it gives her that activity. That's another thing. So I'm not here to speak against an iPad. It has its benefits. I think the goal in this whole conversation is we all as parents monitor our children such that they are not controlled by this iPad, their emotions are not controlled by this iPad, that they are individuals of themselves, that they are able to control their emotions in a healthy way. Of course, they are growing and they are learning to control it, but then the iPad is not influencing them to behave irrational. But it's possible that your child is actually using an iPad and the iPad is working well and your child is excellent. That's, thank God for you. Right? But then I think what we've seen so far online, the impact of just having kids stare on the screen for a long time is actually not so good, and that's why I just wanted to bring it out there. But what do you think? What are you doing? You can drop in the comment section your own experience with your children using the iPad, or your loved ones or relative. Let's have this conversation about the use of iPad. What do you think? Or how long do you think a child should be on an iPad, daily or weekly? Or what are the strategies that are working for you? I feel this is a conversation we should have so we can all help our children, because we can only a community can raise a child, and it's a healthy community that can raise a healthy child. So let's all work together. I would love to read what you're doing, what strategies are working for you. What I said is what I did, but what are you doing? What are you doing? I would love to read from you what you're doing, and then I'm sure many other people who are following you will also want to learn what you're doing. So let's engage in the comment section. Let me see what you're doing. And this is Design Inspires. If this content really impacted you, I would like you to like and click the subscribe button. Also, share this video with a mother who is struggling with her child and the iPad.